Hello, and welcome to Health from the Inside Out. I'm Dr. Cutter, surgical oncologist, general surgeon, and obesity medicine specialist. So I'm here today to update you on life as it is progressing here in Los Angeles and really across the country and even around the world. There's so many things going on right now. You know, if you think about it, we've had different assaults to our senses. We've had different things that have happened in our professional lives, and we've had different things that have happened in our personal lives and even at home. Sometimes those things can really take a toll. And, we are so busy trying to work and take care of business and also to care and love for people in our lives, we don't always take note of that. So I really want to take some time today on this program to really recognize some of the mental health issues and some psychological issues, but just not from the standpoint of an opportunity to just air it. What we want to do is also provide some strategies and some ways that you can take care of yourself and maybe help some people in your life, whether it's family members, people you work with, or your clients, patients, or your customers. Before we get started, I want to give some shout outs. Thank you, Makita, for the music that opened up the show. We do have some different music at different times, so we're going to mix it up. And I also would like to just recognize that we do have some great people joining us this evening for this show, and we hope that you stay with us throughout. So again, I'm Dr. Cutter, surgical oncology, and we're going to bring in our first guest. Her name is Dr. Natasha Nelson. Now, Dr. Nelson is kind of an interesting character here. She's got a very kind of eclectic background that really brings a lot of skills and talents and training together to make her kind of uniquely qualified to show up for us today in a way that's going to be meaningful and bring us into transformation. So let's then bring in Dr. Nelson, and then I'm going to talk about her a little bit and let her talk about herself. Hi, Dr. Nelson.
Hi, Dr. Cutter. So I actually can't hear you. So I'm trying to read your lips, and now the screen has split, so I can't see you. So I did not get to hear any of your introduction. Are you there? I don't know what to do.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try to see if we can get some of our technology together. And while we're working on the technology, I'm going to introduce her. So, Dr. Nelson has kind of a nice varied background. She is actually a chiropractor by training. She started off as a chiropractor, and then what she did is she layered on top of that, a master's in psychology. But what she decided to do with that is take that more into I'm going to call it the LA style of things. LA kind of brings that kind of life experience into things and kind of broadens it to encompass, life and joy, transformation, all those things. So that's what she did. So she took all of that knowledge and background. And so she's actually a consultant for Fortune 500 companies. She's got clients in the chiropractic space. She's got clients in that life coaching type of space and emotional, she calls it emotional literacy, not the emotional intelligence space. And in addition to that, she's been practicing about 20 years. She's got her own practice. And so she brings a lot to the table, in order to share her thoughts and things with us. So I want to see if we've got some technology going because I really want to start hearing from her. Dr. Nelson, are we back on track?
Yes, thank you. I was able to hear everything that we said there. So that's wonderful.
Oh, that's good. Okay. So hopefully you received that introduction in the positive way that it was sent out to you into the universe.
I did. Thank you. Yes. And and I hear you. I go, oh gosh, I've done that. Yes, I did do that. Oh yeah, that's good.
See, I knew more about you than you thought. So I've put you out here on Front Street. One thing that I like to do with this show is when we have people like you who have these interesting backgrounds and things like that, I like to tell people a little bit about how they got there. Because, we have some people who are watching who are thinking, wow, I've always wanted to do something like that. How do I do it? So give me the 60-second overview of how you worked your way into these different spaces. Okay, go.
And go. Well, the thing I love to always share is it was not a straight line. It was not a big plan. I said, I'm going to do A, B, and C, and over the course of 20 years, get to this place here. I took the scenic route, I like to say, through college, and meaning I dropped out a little bit, came back, dropped out, came back, and you know, went through life's challenges, but learned from them. Really made the conscious effort to learn from the experiences that I had, and I always brought my experience to my practice, whether it was chiropractic when I was talking about nutrition and physical health and workouts, and then really transition into mental health consulting, which is what I do primarily now. I'd say 90% of my practice versus 10% chiropractic, of life experience of what it was, to be a mother, and a time when I was taking care of my mom before she passed, and just life experience, and bringing all the things that I learned and the challenges that I faced, and how I don't shy away from it all, and willing to share it. So that's how I ended up here.
What's beautiful about that is, a lot of people think that people who are successful or who are doing like these interesting things have had some kind of magical life. And I just want everyone to have that wake up call. Like, there's no magic, right? There's some people do have a privileged life, but there's some toll to pay for everything. So what I'm just trying to say is, you may be going through some things, or you may have had a setback. Like she said, she kind of stopped for a while, but she went back. And she had that resilience, and she had that drive to continue. So I think that that's one of the first things that, we can really highlight here as we talk about some mental health issues is, the importance of resilience. Let's talk a little bit about resilience, Dr. Nelson, because, here we are. We're in, I keep saying I don't want to keep harping on COVID-19, the pandemic, but we're going to really deal with some of these things today. Here we are in the pandemic, and people have had some major setbacks. Not everybody, but people have had some major setbacks. And so I think two things that people are learning. One is to quote unquote pivot, and that's a really important thing. People who have these restaurants, they're learning you're not going to have 1 million people sitting in your restaurant. So you got to pivot and do delivery. And then also the resilience. So let's talk about what that looks like, pivoting and resilience in this time of a challenging time.
Yeah. I love this topic. I knew when we started about a year ago, then with the pandemics, and the lockdown, I remember in my mind when people were like, "Oh, it's going to be, 2 or 3 weeks," and I remember going, "It might be a little longer, but okay." I wasn't afraid of it. It was unknown. But I remember having this gut feeling even before we started back in January of last year. It was a year where everything felt unsustainable. People were going so fast in life. I'm trying to do so much.
Unsustainable how? Like, what do you mean by unsustainable? Like, what do you...
Unsustainable schedules and unsustainable lifestyle of sleeping, 4 hours a night, and trying to just squeeze more stuff into the day, and trying to get more out of themselves and out of work and out of their kids. And I remember that feeling. It just felt unsustainable. I didn't know what that meant, other than it just, something needed to shift. And I felt like all of last year, all of the, myself, my friends, clients, it was such a place of getting to the place of realizing, we were all forced to stop. And the resilience was really about taking stock of all the stuff that was coming up, because everybody had something to deal with, because it was either family that they were stuck with, or friends that they couldn't see, or
how many times have we heard that the family that people are stuck with? Like, everybody's like, I love my kids, but who are these monsters? Okay, who are they? Because I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, I think it was the first time people really felt the magnitude of the decisions that they had made over the course of 5, 10, 15 years of, when we're sitting still and forced to be still for long periods of time, it really makes your choices become very aware of who you're with, and how you spend your time and your money and what you do with it. And the thing I worked the most with people was how to just sit and feel uncomfortable, because it was uncomfortable to sit home all day and not know what to do, and the kids are home, and I gave up on the having rules about screen time with my daughter. I was like, fine. There's a point by the second week, I said, fine, she's fine.
And you
Watch
gave her
it
a
for
second
15
screen,
hours.
right? You were like, here's 2 screens to choose
Yeah.
from. Okay, deal with it. No, I'm kidding. But you bring up a very important thing, in what you're saying. People are sitting at home. They're trying to figure out what to do. So now we're on the topic of boredom, right? There's a whole boredom element. I mean, you watch all of Netflix, okay, I gave them a shout out, and all these other stations, you binge watch a show, you're looking through all this stuff. I mean, how much television and how many movies can you watch? And so people are trying to figure out what else they can do. What kind of recommendations do you have for people who are trying to find something to do?
I've had to talk with a lot of people about the concept of being bored and boredom. And it's really easy to, see where life was before and how we didn't have to experience boredom. So we would just fill our time and our days with stuff to do. So when all that stuff is gone, boredom has a place, and it's uncomfortable to sit in, though. And if you can sit in it long enough, you'll start to get creative ideas that flow.
Interesting.
And for the first time, I've had people and friends say, hey, you know what? They would color with their children or by themselves. I like to color too.
There's adult coloring books now, right? And there's some that are meditative. There's some that are like for creative minds. There's some that are for peace. There's all these so everybody, that's a really good idea. There's adult coloring books. You can get them. They have them, on, by mail. You can go to the store, whatever, and then get your colored pencils, whatever it is. And really, what she's talking about and what some people are doing, I think that's another form of meditation, right? Mm-hmm. When you're sitting there coloring, what it's doing is it's focusing the active mind so that the subconscious mind has the freedom to then communicate with you, so it's another form of meditation. So let's talk about that.
I love that. Yes. And there is something about, allowing your mind, the active mind, to be focused on something. So coloring, even, repainting your apartment and home, whatever, cleaning, things like that, allows the creative from the subconscious and the unconscious to start to come up.
Right.
So somewhere around the 4th month, so March of last year, so right around June, I started to hear from friends and people that the book that they were thinking about, they were actually starting to write it, or business projects that they wanted to start. They were actually ready to start writing it. And that was because once you get all the kind of energy, focus, mental energy out, all the creative stuff is allowed to be there, which is what we've been missing so much when we're so busy with our schedules. We miss out on the creative element, because that takes silence. It takes a stillness.
So Dr. Nelson, what's the value of that? You say that we're missing out on it. This is our chance to be quiet in it. And some people, who are used to being busy or being, really productive or, working with this and working with that, what's the value of the creative in the life in general? Okay. In life in general.
Yeah. Well, for me and the way that I work, it was really centered around, I call it God. It's a different word for different people. Call it universe, spirit, whatever, nature. But it allows to feel a sense of who we are as people. It allows us to feel connected to our heart.
So identity, connection.
The connection to our own self, to actually hear our thoughts and feel our feelings, and get an idea of what feels uncomfortable, what we like, what we don't like, and really just, slow it down. Things like, what food are you eating? Is it, you're no longer rushing around driving kids to practice and eating from a drive-through. You actually have a time to think and feel and go, well, do I like what I'm going to eat? I have time to cook something else. So it's just connecting to yourself, that this time and silence and downtime and the creative element is about who you really are and a connection to your heart and soul.
Now, we're going to come back to that food element in a little bit. We're going to have somebody else join us in a few. And, like I've been telling people, we're all kind of nurturing this Corona belly, right? It's growing before our eyes. And somebody also called it a pandemic pouch. So when people are saying, do I like what I eat? Heck yeah, because they've been eating a lot of it, right? Everybody's eating more. And so they're kind of filling that space instead of, with maybe something creative or productive with food. But I want to jump over in terms of filling the space. What about people who are finding out new things about their relationships that they didn't like? So the married couple who really finds out their marriage is on the rocks, or the couple who are not married, living together and trying to build a relationship. Now they're kind of trapped because this isn't a good time to move for either of them. How do we work our way out of those difficult pairings types of relationships?
Yeah, well, first it's recognizing the role and the part that individually that you, I say we, me, are responsible for. And this is the first time for many people that they've actually looked at their, whether it's a roommate or a spouse and partner, and really looked at their role of why they got married to this person. Why did they, get involved with this person?
That sounds like a Tyler Perry movie, right? Why did I? Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can't always make change in the middle, like right now, in the middle of the pandemic. Sometimes you just have to survive, but make a plan at the same time of what to do once it's done.
Right.
And it's okay to go in steps and stages to just start to look at your role, your responsibility, and also understand what the dynamic that's not working. It may not be that there's anything wrong. It just might be that now so much time you realize you may not be the same people you were when you first, got married, or you just realize maybe where you live, you don't want to live there anymore. So there's a variety of being really in tune with yourself and asking yourself those really tough questions and being, by yourself and being really honest. I think the most important is starting off with be honest with yourself about where you're at, about what you want, about how you got where you're at. And then you'll have better ideas of how to change it and go in a different direction.
You know what I really like about that? This is something that I talk about with my single friends or, friends who are complaining about their spouses, whether it's, male or female. And, being a surgeon, I spent a lot of time with a lot of men and, I'm sorry, men like to complain about their wives, right? So, I'm always like, do you think she actually enjoys you? You know how happy she is that you're here at the hospital operating right now, that she doesn't have to deal with you. So what I liked about, I actually do say that, but and everybody laughs. But what I like about what you said though was you didn't say, let's see if you can figure out like what this person's doing. You said you have to look at yourself. It's an opportunity for you to really look at yourself and do some self-examination. And for some people, that's absolutely terrifying.
Oh, yes.
So what I want to do is I want to unpack that a little bit just from the standpoint of, let's say it's a person who's really not used to doing that. And their default is it's your fault, right? There's some people who think everything is external to them.
Right.
They bear no causality for things going wrong, like it's, I did, this is funny. I dated a guy once. He was extraordinary. He was an extraordinary person, very wealthy and all kinds of wonderful things happening, self-made, millionaire, just very oppressive, came from nothing. But one of the first things he told me, we were talking about old relationships, which by the way, I hate doing that, but he wanted to, so that's what we did. And so he went through like 5 different women. And at the end of each story, she was crazy. And so he kept saying that, and she was crazy. And she was crazy. So at the end of it, I said, what's common to all of these crazy women? He's like, what? What is it? I said, you're driving women crazy. And I'm not going to let you do that to me. So he had absolutely no insight. I said, I really want you to take, and I actually said this to him, I want you to take some time and think about each relationship and figure out what it is that you brought to that relationship that made things crazy. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's try to unpack that a little bit And this is for the novice who's not used to, self-examination. How do you advise people really unpack that and figure out what they're bringing into those difficult situations?
One of the first questions I like to challenge people with, I always give a little pushback when they say, "Oh, it's my spouse's fault, it's the kid's fault." Is anything that you're complaining about, chances are you're doing it yourself. And just the fact that you're blaming somebody or bringing it up means you're aware of it. So if you're aware of it, it's because you're probably doing it too. So that's always like point number one that I like to bring up. And the second point is, most people always want their partner to give them space to be who they are. Okay. They're like, "Oh, I want my partner to give me the space to let me go work out when I want, or eat what I want, or shop when I want." And I always turn it back and say, "Well, do you give your partner the space to let them just be the way that they want to be?" And if you're not willing to give your partner the space, then don't ask for it yourself and get mad at them for it either.
Especially if there's kids or chores or things like that. There's some people who are like, "I need my time. I need to go to the gym," or whatever, but they're not really, you're right, giving the spouse their time. I'll take the kids so you can go to the gym. I'll do the chores so you can sit and watch TV and have a drink or whatever. So that's a really good one. And then, so let's say that somebody kind of gets going, like they're able to, first stop and, take that self-examination. And then secondly, look at the complaining is what you talked about. And then the second thing is giving what it is that you're asking for, what you feel that you need. What's the next step in terms of bringing that home? Because to me, that's just kind of a way to get things open and started, right? And now that you're kind of opening yourself up, and you got to scrub it, right? You got to scrub all that out. So what's next?
Yeah. Next is having honest conversations and honest questions. And I tell people, you never get to use the word fine as an answer. You never get to say answer. Stoppers. So if you don't know what to say, or if your spouse asks you something and you want to fine or whatever, then you should not answer it. Then you should just say, "Let me get back to you. Let me think about it." Honest, and say, "I'm not sure. Let me put some thought into it." And because anytime you have like the eye rolls with the kind of answers to questions, you automatically cut out the heart, and you automatically stop any conversation from happening between two people that it will actually cause, create any kind of solution. So that's the can't answer the question with the word fine or whatever, and certainly no eye rolls are allowed.
Okay, well, Dr. Nelson, whatever. So, no, I'm kidding. You're right. And people do use that. There's even a funny commercial about that where, he's kind of like, "So is everything okay?" And she's like, "I'm fine." And then the commercial's about, how do you, what do you do? But there's a lot of mysteries in life, and he's just sitting there looking at her like, "I don't even know what to do. I don't know what to say." And then he just walks out the room. So you're right about that. We are having a few little technical difficulties with your feed right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if CJ has had a chance to join us. Is CJ with us yet? Okay, so CJ isn't with us yet, but we do have someone else with us. Now, this is one of our experts. We do have some resident experts that kind of jump in and out and join the conversation at opportune times. And this is one of those times. This is one of our experts on insurance. So you might be wondering, okay, why are we going to talk about insurance? Well, this is a time where, there's some financial challenges and things like that, and we really want to take advantage of our resources, okay? We don't want to be in situations where there are things we need, but we can't get access to them because we're not properly prepared. So we do have an insurance expert to kind of help us to, kind of go through some of these issues and things like that and talk about the insurance perspective. So I want to bring him in. His name is David Doe. And he's an insurance broker, and he works for the Solux Insurance Solutions company. And so, David, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey,
Thanks for having me.
welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you, ladies?
We're all doing well, I think. Everybody here in the studio, socially
Yeah.
distanced, far, far away. My arms are each 6 feet in length, so we're good out here. So, what I want to do is start off talking about mental health. You know, there's a lot of health insurance plans that kind of have, you know, everything loaded in, and then there's some that just kind of have like a piece of this vision, they have dental or whatever. You know, how often do we see mental health covered in insurance plans?
Yeah, that's something that actually, believe it or not, quite a few health insurance do have,
Good.
but it is carved out and it's a separate component. So you have the medical and then the mental health. So they've kind of differentiated between all the other specialists with medical side, and then you've got mental health.
Okay.
So it's a little bit like a carved out niche section, but yeah, as far as I know, because I do things like cover California, Medicare for seniors, so I've kind of got all the bases covered.
Good.
And looking at all these plans, yes, they do have a mental health portion in their summary of benefits for most plans. So yes, you do definitely have that benefit and coverage.
So that's terrific. And you know, you mentioned those different populations, and one thing that popped into my mind around that is, you know, there's a big difference between seeing a psychiatrist and seeing a psychologist. And so in that mental health coverage, are both psychiatrists and psychologists covered, or is it mostly the psychiatrist because that's the MD, or, you know, is it psychologists only for a certain component? How does that part work?
Yeah, so mainly it's for psychiatry.
Okay.
And it's usually on a one-on-one setting or a group setting. So you do have that option. I believe psychology is also could potentially be covered. Depends on the type of plan and how willing they're able to work with psychologists. But yes, it is primarily psychiatry that is considered the mental health or the bulk of that coverage.
Okay. And, you know, I really want, Dr. Nelson is still with us, so I want her to chime in here and just, as we're talking about the insurance thing, talk a little bit about, just for the sake of the audience, the difference between the kind of treatment you get from a psychiatrist and what you're getting from a psychologist. Dr. Nelson, can you make that distinction? And then we'll go back to David Doe.
Yeah, so I'm not going to be able to make the exact nature of how they're different. Psychiatry actually has a lot more of a specialty with the types of diagnoses they can make, the types of treatment, medications. So they're very much more specialized, versus psychology is going to be a little bit more broad and unable to make the same types of diagnoses and treatment plans and referrals and medications that are available.
Okay.
So that's my understanding of how they're different.
Okay, that helps a lot. So, you know, David, you know, another thing I'm wondering is, let's say that you start off in working with your psychologist and you're in therapy, you know, you are making progress, and let's say it takes you, you know, 3 months, 6 months. Is there a time limit associated typically with this mental health coverage and getting, you know, this type of therapy, or is it unlimited? You know, can someone just do it as long as they need it, as long as the psychologist thinks that it's needed? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So mental health in general, some plans, particularly in the Medicare space, they do have a time frame. I believe it's 190 days would be the lifetime max. So, but again, you would have to look into your summary benefits or evidence of coverage, because different plans might have different guidelines. So, but again, I'm just referencing the Medicare side for seniors. And again, like you said, depending on the case or circumstance, if the psychiatrist or psychologist recommends that this patient needs more care, then they can request for approval. So it's, once again, it's kind of a case by case basis in some cases, and otherwise it's pretty spelled out there.
That's kind of interesting because if you think about 190 days lifetime, I mean, that's just saying that, hey, only one thing is going to happen to you and it's going to be quick. That's not really allotting for, all the things that can happen. I mean, because and when we finish talking about insurance, we're going to jump into some of these deeper topics about, what about all these people who are losing family members to the pandemic? They can't go see them and all that. That can be very traumatic, not just for someone's child or parent, a spouse, all of these relationships, they're losing people. And, there's a lot of other things that are happening in life. They're losing jobs. There's a lot to deal with. And so I'm wondering, is there a way to get like supplemental coverage or something like that for mental health issues if you have completely used your 190 days? Or is it just 190 for one diagnosis?
No, I believe it's lifetime for, I've seen cases where certain plans, they spell out that any mental health, regardless of, it's not a per case or per incident, it's just a lifetime max.
Wow.
So I'm just throwing out the 190. I could be off, but there are certain cases where if you look at your evidence of coverage, it will clearly say what your lifetime maximum is for that particular plan. But in other cases, it doesn't really spell that out. So it really depends on, again, the plan and the benefits. So you just need to look at that carefully before you purchase a plan.
Is there additional coverage that can be purchased? So could somebody say, hey, look, I know my family, and let me tell you, I'm going to need way more days than that. So let me get, 5 years worth just to have it. Can somebody purchase additional coverage, or is it just out of pocket?
Yeah, I've never really, you see supplemental coverage for like dental, vision, chiropractic,
right,
what have you, but it just seems like the mental health side, it just seems overlooked. So I haven't seen anything out there that has supplemental for mental health.
Okay. That's really helpful. I really want to thank you. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about mental health insurance that can really help the public?
Well, what they can do is, since I consult people on a one-on-one basis and everybody's situation is different, they can reach out to me and I can give you my contact information and where they can find me. So basically,
can you give your contact information now so that everyone get a pen, a piece of paper, or get your iPad or phone out? And this is how you can contact David Doe if you have any questions, or, you want to talk about getting some mental health coverage and what you need to do and what the deadlines are and the limitations and all those things. David, can you spell your name for everybody and then give out your contact information?
Sure. So my name, David Doe, is spelled D-A-V-I-D. Last name is Doe, spelled D-O. And my direct phone number is area code 310-995-7186. I'll repeat it one more time. It's 310-995-7186. And they can also reach me because I'm in the local community, particularly in the South Bay. So I'm in the Torrance Walmart on Hawthorne Boulevard, just across the street from Del Amo Mall.
The Walmart?
So, yeah, the Walmart. I have a kiosk there, basically. Yeah, so it's like a kiosk that I have for health insurance. And it's on a seasonal basis, though. So people can see me there between October 15th through December 7th. And that's the open enrollment period.
Okay, that's perfect. So everybody, you have a couple of touch points with David Doe. If you have questions, he's given out his phone number. And then beginning in October through early December, you can see him at the Walmart down in Torrance on Del Amo. So that's a couple ways to contact him. So David, thank you so much for being one of our experts on the insurance coverage, because we want to make sure that people are getting the things that they need and taking advantage of their resources. So somebody like you can really make a difference. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay. So, Dr. Nelson, I really want to get back on some of these deeper topics. We talk about mental health and some of those coping strategies we went over earlier, but I want to dig into the things that are super serious. There's some reports that, in those relationships, those difficult relationships that are breaking down, it's kind of a hotbed for abuse. And what makes it even more challenging is now the person who's being abused is kind of a captive. There's really all this social distancing. Maybe they were working. Now there's no opportunity for them to get out of the home. Maybe they had some chores or things to do. Now they're ordering everything in from online. So they're just basically stuck there in that situation. Let's start talking about some of the things that, some early warning signs for people that they're kind of in an unsafe situation. And then let's talk about some things that they can do. So what are some of the early warning signs that things are going into that direction? Do you have any insights on that?
That's a really, I do. It's a delicate and very difficult place where I would always recommend people that even though things are tough, to find a place if they need to get out, find a friend. Find a friend, a local, and to go and stay with, before making big decisions. So you have to get everything. It's a hard question to answer because there's so many layers and so many levels. One of the warning signs, it's really,
is it more
people
like
that I've talked to, people that I've talked to, their gut feeling is they already know when something is going on.
Yeah.
Even prior to anything happening, there's a gut feeling, and they know that they need to get out, or they know it. They know they feel unsafe. And I always tell people, listen to your gut feeling, even if what you see with your eyes
or hear with your ears
match even if what you're getting from your eyes or your ears doesn't match what you feel yet, don't wait. Like, if you feel it, something's going on, and you need to act based on what your feelings are.
Okay. So that's good. So I think one of those, to unpack that a little bit, one of those things is really listen to your inner being, right? Listen to that inner knowing that things are not headed in the best direction. And, when you start making excuses for your significant other, oh, well, she's just like that because, or he's just doing that because, I feel like that's kind of a slippery slope too. When you're making excuses, family calls, they're like, what's going on over there? Oh, well, she's just upset because, he's just upset because. That's how you know that you're kind of headed maybe in that direction. So then you might find yourself in an unexpected place where you've got children, you've got an abusive spouse, whether it's verbal, emotional, mental, or what have you. And so you may be torn between children and the spouse, right? So how do you begin to mitigate that? And I'm not asking for a precise answer, but I'm just trying to give people like some starting points. How do you just begin to take some steps to improve your situation? What are some things people can do?
Yeah, you begin by talking to somebody.
Okay.
I've had people tell me that they felt afraid to bring anything up because they didn't feel they understood, or they didn't know for sure what was happening. Like I said, it was just a gut feeling. They're like, well, I don't really know for sure. And I said, just get help by asking first. Like, I work independently, but there's a mental health clinic nearby that I refer to, because they have the resources to everything from for shelters to children's services to police to attorneys. Like, they have all of those things in place. And so if you can reach out to even like an addiction clinic,
right.
A clinic is going to have access to all the people in place.
And one of those hotline type things, right? So the Lighthouse and, all these places that if you're having a blank, call this 800 number. So that's actually a really good suggestion because, you're always seeing these advertisements. And so even if it's not the perfect 800 number, they could probably funnel you to the right one, correct?
Right. And they are places that are trained, and they have people that can, like hotline, that can ask you the right questions, and they know how to ask. So that if you're at home and you can't answer honestly because somebody is there, they're trained to ask questions so that you can speak and answer a yes or no, and they know how to get you help.
Okay.
But they'll be able to get you what you need and ask what you need and guide you.
Okay. That is really helpful. And then,
Yeah.
of course, what if you are in a kind of a urgent situation? Somebody, there's actively something happening, or you feel unsafe, or you've been threatened. When do you get the police involved? Because it used to be that, I'm just going to be cliche, but in the 50s or 60s or whatever, if a woman complained, oh my gosh, my husband's abusive or what have you, the police would say, go home, it's going to be okay. This is a domestic thing. So, you do want to be judicious in terms of getting the police involved at a point where they can actually intervene. So what are the situations where, other than the obvious harm has come to a person, but is it threats? Is it certain types of threats? Are we recording things or keeping text messages? What is it that, people do in order to, present themselves appropriately to the authorities?
I'm going to defer a little bit with CJ, but I know for me, I just tell people call 911 and then sort it out later. Call 911, make sure you're safe, make sure there's somebody else, and then sort it out after making sure everybody is safe.
Okay, so that's if you're unsafe. Okay, I see.
Even if you just feel unsafe, if you don't know, call 911 and they will guide. If you don't know, just let them help you.
Okay. Do we have CJ with us? Is that what's happening here?
Yes, I'm on, Dr. Cutter.
Okay, and I missed you. Did you say something and I missed it because I just put some headphones on, so maybe I missed you.
Oh, I'm on the screen. I'm on Zoom.
Okay,
so
I can take these things up. I'm getting the high sign that you're here, and I'm like, well, I don't hear him.
Let me just. I've been listening. Oh my God! First of all, I got to check with my wife, make sure she doesn't hate me after the pandemic.
That's good. Look at yourself. That's good.
You guys made me self-reflect. But let me address and man, Dr. Nelson. Oh my God, she's amazing,
isn't she? This is so good.
Yeah. The secret is out. I am a fitness coach, a fitness wellness guru, and all that good stuff. But for 25 years, in law enforcement. So it's ironic that you guys are talking about as the pandemic gets worse and people are together, these things happen to these couples.
Exactly.
It starts out light, then it goes a little heavy. Well, here's the deal. At the first incident of any argument that appears that it could have gone to that next level, you need to get the police involved right away. It doesn't always lead to like arrest if it's just an argument, but you're getting each incident is being documented.
So it's the paper trail.
It's the paper trail. So if let's say you just get there as a law enforcement officer and it's just an argument and things calm down, okay, cool. Well, at least we have a domestic incident that's documented. Now, if there is misdemeanor or felony where there's actual touching, somebody's going, like it or not, there's no, I was just kidding, he was just playing. They're mandated to do something, okay? And I'm not, when I said him, but it could be her too, because it goes both ways. I've seen it in my career dozens of times. And as far as the things are so modern now in the law enforcement, they link up, like Dr. Nelson was talking about, resources with people like the Genesee Center, different agencies that help women and men immediately who are dealing with domestic violence to provide resources. There are DART teams, domestic violence victims counselors, that come out with law enforcement. This has been going on for a few years now. So people want answers. You have an answer. You have an outlet. I think the tough thing is, like anything, any habit that you let, good or bad, you sort of let it happen because it's the norm. You have to say it's enough to make that phone call to get the ball rolling. And that's the hardest part. Okay.
It really is, and there's a lot of pressure, I think, on relationships and individuals. Oh, you're not patient enough, this and that, people, sometimes there's a lot of outside pressure to be a certain way or to remain, right? And so, what I'm trying to advocate for is for people kind of listening to their inner voice. People know when things are not right? I mean, they kind of have that knowing. And I like the fact that you're talking about some good resources that are there with law enforcement and, the role of law enforcement, because I think there's some people who think nobody's going to believe me. It's just like someone who is, and again, we're also having situations where people are are being assaulted, sexual assaults and things like that because of the pandemic. And, we know that 1 in 4 women have had some type of sexual assault, whether it was in college, as a child, or as an adult. So that's really an alarming number. If you're in a room with 4 people, that means somebody in there, at least one person, has had some type of issue. So that's another thing. You are in a situation, it could even be at work or something. How do you know how to present that situation so that you can get some type of intervention? I'm glad you're there, CJ, because you can give the law enforcement perspective. What about those sexual assaults, not by a spouse, but by maybe somebody that you know or work with?
Sometimes many corporations or entities are basically mandated to report, especially in schools, professional environments, corporations, but even in law enforcement, we're mandated to report on each other when we see things. You almost have to count on someone recognizing the signs, but many people are educated in seeing the signs and reporting. Once I start seeing the signs of something, I start developing a rapport. Once you develop a rapport, you develop a friendship. Or you may already have that friend. I heard Dr. Nelson earlier in the show. I was training clients and listening at the same time.
Thank you for listening.
Find friends that you can trust, so you can lay that onto, and they can find. Now, in some cases, I've seen in my career where these friends aren't very supportive, but for the most part, your ride or die friends, as we say in the community, when they know you're in trouble and you decide to push that button, they're there to help in some kind of way. So you have to trust. And then the reality is, sometimes you have to say enough is enough to break the habit of your victimization.
Right.
And that's hard. Now they say, and I was speaking to a domestic violence counselor. She said, if you leave the 7th time, that's the worst time to leave, because that's the chance you might get killed. So you have to start making these decisions early, because you're dealing with a cycle of violence that repeats itself over and over again.
Let's talk about that again. You said if you're leaving the 7th time.
Yeah, people leave numerous. They leave numerous.
They leave
times
and come back. They leave and come back.
But it's usually after Dr. Angela Parker from the Genesee Center. After that 7th time within that cycle, when you finally say that's it intensifies, and that's when women and sometimes men get killed, because it's been heightened. You leave and come back, and then you finally made a decision. That 7th time, statistically, that's the most dangerous time. So that first instance is your gut. When somebody, and if you're listening out there today and you're dealing with this, and this is your first time, or maybe it's the 2nd time it has happened, I'm here to tell you from experience, and I know the doctor has seen, both of you doctors have seen in all sorts of ways people who've been victimized. We are telling you that first time is your gut feeling. If somebody can hit you the first time, they can do it again the 2nd time. The same goes for elements of human trafficking. They're the same cycle of victim. It starts with domestic and spousal. Before you know it, it's something worse. So find your accountability team. Find that ride or die. I'm not talking about your casual friend. I'm talking about your ride or die, that when you get that safe word, you need help, get that help you can get. But when you don't have that, we're here this is where you listen to the experts, okay? Right. Thank God I have expertise in other fields, so I'm so glad I can contribute in this way, because this is just as important too. When that switch comes on, you have to do something, because when you're gone, who's there to take care of your kid? That person that was beating on you.
Exactly. And even if you don't have kids, I don't want people to feel that, the value is measured by that. Right. You're here on this earth for a purpose, for a reason, and you don't have to be, a parent to have value, and you don't even have to be somebody's spouse to have value, right? Even if you're just someone's significant other and they're harming you, you're still here for a reason. So it's important for you to protect yourself and care for yourself and make sure that you are not just surviving. We want everybody to thrive. That's why Dr. Nelson, CJ, myself, we're all here. We're all here from the standpoint of thriving. So, I love that, he's giving us this perspective of how to get help and how to seek help. And not just that, the warning signs. Oh my gosh, because what you said is just so true. People are kind of get caught up in this fog, right? And it's the fog of explanation and the fog of, but we love each other, and things like that. So we have to get to the point where we're trusting ourselves and, trusting our instincts and things like that. I want to segue a little bit from this topic. You did mention human trafficking. And can I tell you guys, that's kind of a contemporary term. And I really did not understand what that meant for a long time. I was thinking it was one thing, but it's actually something more over-encompassing. What are we seeing in terms of human trafficking with the pandemic? Because I can only imagine that this is making things even more difficult, because now you've got a group of people that maybe had a job or a position at one time. And so that's part of human trafficking too, where people are brought to the country sometimes to work in certain areas, kind of as, let's say the word, I mean, modern day slavery. I mean, that's what's happening. And this is not about African diaspora. I mean, this is Latino and European and, a whole lot of, different things, Asian. So talk to us about what's happening with human trafficking during the pandemic. What have you two heard as professionals in those areas?
Well, I'll let Dr. Nelson go, and then I'll tailor in right after that.
What a gentleman. I love it. Okay, Dr. Nelson, you're up.
I don't, because my position, I'm not in a position where I'm in the front lines where I see a lot. I'm not really, I don't feel qualified to really answer a lot in this.
Okay, that's okay, Dr. Nelson. Maybe you can give some insights as we get into the conversation about, some strategies and everything. CJ is well exposed and well versed and working out with all kinds of people, so I know he's got something on this. So, Mr. CJ, let's hear what you've got to tell us about human trafficking right now.
I really appreciate the credibility that I'm looking at. I'm sitting here and I've got goosebumps with all the experience of all levels at the table. When it comes to human trafficking and the pandemic, of course, everything is magnified.
Right.
The way people are pimped. You almost said, well, human trafficking, believe it or not, is done in junior high and high school. There are, and the pimps are sometimes female or male.
Wow.
And you're thinking, now the school's out, my kids are home. Well, guess what? These pimps still somehow make contact, and they disguise themselves as best buds or best friends, and the human trafficking continues. It's not the visual that people think. Oh, we grab a girl, we put her under the cellar. It's not just that. That is literally an extreme.
Okay, now you're blowing my mind. You said high school, huh?
Oh yeah, this pimp game goes into high school, junior high.
And it's a peer. It's somebody at that age.
It's a peer. It's a peer.
I really want to unpack that. I mean, we don't have tons of time left, but Dr. Nelson, you're going to have to hit me with some thoughts about how does that happen, where somebody at that age is getting into something like what is that? What is that? That's kind of out of my experience level. Dr. Nelson, do you have anything to throw in on there before CJ takes us further?
No, I'm going to let him go because it is so beyond my my knowledge, and I understand it, but to be able to explain it, I'd rather hear it from CJ too.
Okay, so CJ, it's all you now. What is going on, at that age where, we think of it as being, not completely innocent, but somewhat innocent, and how does a minor get themselves into that position? Like what's going on there? Is it because something's happening at home? Or, what is that situation? Do you have insight on that?
Believe it or not, it's not. There are some good 2-parent homes where children are being trafficked right underneath the house, and the parents don't even know it.
Oh my gosh!
It's the same, and this is where you all can chime in because it's need. It's the need for acceptance. It's need for, and for some on the other end of it, it's just like, whoa, I just made $20 doing this, and they can't rationalize right or wrong, so they get in the game. Or some go, wait a minute. I don't have to do this. I can pimp out some of my high school girlfriends to do the same thing. These are women or men. Sometimes it's older men disguising themselves in a sense and getting in these young girls' mind. It used to be back when we were going to school, they would just try to date this 30-year-old man trying to date these 13-year-olds. But now it's the pimp game. So let's show that I'm your daddy, that your dad's not your dad. And your great dad doesn't even know what's going on. But there are clues and triggers to watch for if you're parents. And listen, this is from my experience, from what I learned in law enforcement, and also 2 guests on this issue that educated me even more, a former police detective and a person that works at the Jennings Center, Dr. Parker.
Okay, so you've got a parent here, with their 3 kids at home now. 2 of them are in high school. What are some of the warning signs that a parent should look for that this type of thing is happening? I mean, what are we looking at here?
Your kid doesn't have a job. and all of a sudden has clothes that you know you didn't give them money to buy. And it's like fresh clothes, fresh jewelry, they're dressed to the T, and you're a parent, you're like, I didn't give them money for this.
It's like, I know I didn't give you that.
Yeah. That is a clue to start asking questions. I'm not saying your kid is doing that, but it's a clue to start asking questions.
What about behavior wise? What's the behavior like?
Well, the kids will try to pretend like everything's normal, but it's not. They may become aloof. They may not communicate as much. And that's why it's not just adolescents. This is where parents need to say, hey, what's going on today? You need to check your kids' phones, because it can also start there with these apps. Snap, these are different apps. I don't want to say the names or anything, but you can be trafficked. Somebody could fish and pretend to be a kid. And next thing you know, you're looking at a genital picture, and it's like, hey, this is okay. I'm 14 too. You want to meet? Guess what? I caught my daughter like that. A guy tried to, I forgot the texting app. A guy pretended he was like her age, but then sent a penis pic. And then I was like, hey, what is this? But she was smart. She was honest and, hey, Dad, this doesn't look right. So we had to have that conversation.
Oh, that's great.
But there are some people that don't even get to have that conversation. They're already indoctrinated, or it sounds interesting, and then they fall into the game. So it's they mask themselves. They give them the acceptance that they feel they need, or trick them that they don't have at home. And then that's where it starts. Next thing you know, hey, meet me here, or, whatever. Say you're going out with your friends and we're going to do this, and everybody at all ages can be pimped. It's just the pimp, no matter what, they find the psychological need to get in.
How does somebody know they're pimpable? Okay, so we kind of did it from the pimp side, but I think most people are walking around thinking like I'm good, life is good or whatever, and the next thing they know, they're whatever's happening. I mean, when I was in med school, well, actually when I was in residency, I was doing research at a cancer center in New York, and somebody had come up from a very prestigious institution in the South and told me that one of their classmates, this is a well-to-do young lady, not African-American, another ethnic descent, who, as a medical student, got into pornography because of a boyfriend. And I was trying to figure out what's that pathway, I can't even get there. So there's clearly something happening. I'm sure she didn't wake up thinking, one day I'm going to get into porn and I'm going to be pimped out. So what is it that, how can somebody figure out, and you have about a minute to answer this, so we clearly have to talk about this another time, but how does somebody figure out that they're pimpable? Like, what is it about them that helps them to know?
Well, that's the job of a pimp. They find vulnerabilities in everyone. There are executives that got caught up in the game because they were vulnerable, because they felt they might have been confident in their lifestyle. They're running corporate, they're go woman, go man, go. But all of a sudden they fall into a relationship, and maybe the need for love and acceptance was their fault. So it starts there. And then the pimp, who's a narcissist, sociopath, will make you feel like you're doing wrong. It starts great. They're great at everything. Before you know it, you're doing wrong. They beat you down. Then they physically start beating you. Then out of nowhere, you're out there prostituting, doing porn, and you were the CEO. It happens to CEOs of businesses. And it's all because of an internal, and Dr. Nelson and I, we talk about this all the time. People who need acceptance will sell their soul, and not in a negative way, but they're susceptible to being caught up in anything. So you can be pimped anyway, but since we're talking about prostitution and human trafficking now, it's the same formula. It's the same formula.
At the risk of being tried,
I have one more thing I would add to that.
We have 30 seconds for you. 30 seconds.
Okay. As I was saying, one of the things that makes you vulnerable are your secrets. Anything that you feel ashamed about in your life that you want to keep secret. If somebody who has wants to pimp you and finds that, they can exploit you with it. And it doesn't have to be a big secret, but it's something you feel ashamed about, whether it's how you look or your family or your money or where you're from, and you're exploitable. And somebody's will use that and use your secrets against you.
Yep. That's excellent. Dr. Nelson, I knew you had something to contribute in there. You kept saying you're not the one, but I knew you had it. And that is so insightful, is the secrets. Secrets can be, are like being confined. They're like putting chains on you. Listen, I at the risk of being trite, I will say, just one thing to kind of encapsulate this, as people look at this area and this level of vulnerability. You know, we have to cure ourselves of the good opinion of other people. Okay, I'll say it again. We have to cure ourselves of the good opinion of other people. We need to think well of ourselves. It's not so necessary to get that good opinion. We've really covered a lot of ground today, and we definitely have fodder for future shows. I definitely want to do something on teenagers because let's face it, it's the mystery of the world, the teens. Okay, nobody understands them, and then they become us, right? So we have to talk about that at some point. And, you know, this trafficking issue is always a big deal. I really want to thank Dr. Natasha Nelson. If you want to contact her, what's the best phone number, Dr. Nelson?
My phone number, yes, is 310-529-7558.
Excellent.
Again, that's, 310-529-7558.
And of course, I mean, we can't, thank you so much. We can't leave without thanking CJ. CJ of CJ Functional Fitness is amazing. Health, fitness, physical, everything. How do we contact you, CJ?
Oh, you can contact me at www.cjffla.com, as in funkyla.com, 424-456-7306. And I'm so looking forward to Dr. Cutter to being on the Black Health Trust this coming Sunday. We are going to save some lives.
That's right. We're going to talk about COVID-19 and obesity from a lot of different perspectives. You don't want to miss that. BlackHealthTrust.com for getting onto that. And you can also get some online channels. And then finally, to reach me at Curetology, it's 213-261-7100. Listen, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, Health from the Inside Out. We had so much to talk about today. We didn't even cover everything. So we're going to have to regroup and do some more. Everyone, be well, take care of each other, but most of all, take care of yourself. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Cutter.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, CJ.
All right.